Right, hello everyone. So today I'm back with another review video. Last night I read Craven's Last Hunt and I thought I'd review it today. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. Quick review for anyone that doesn't want to watch the full video, spoiler free. I really loved this book. This is one of the few Spider-Man books that I have read, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was a really great book and I would highly recommend it, so go check it out if you haven't read it already, you haven't got it. Definitely get it. So now on to the spoiler-free, more in-depth review, if that makes sense. I did this with Gotham After Midnight and I just thought it was the best way to sort of review it, you know? So, there's one big spoiler that I'm going to have to try and avoid talking about, and if you've read the book you obviously know what it is. So this book follows Craven, who is a character I haven't read anything of before, so this as sort of an introduction to that character was a really great place to kind of start, and a really great sort of introduction to the character. The way this is written is really sort of exceptional because it kind of shows you what's going on inside of his head rather than him blurting out lines all the time. Like, for example, he'll fight Spider-Man and he won't blurt out, "Oh, Spider-Man, I must defeat you for this reason." The way the story's told, it's all kind of in his head. You hear his inner monologue, his inner thoughts. So one thing that I would sort of recommend about this book is that it's for more of a mature reader, just because some of the themes that kind of run throughout it, some of the messages that you kind of get are more sort of, you'll understand them if you're a bit older. So I would say probably about 16, 17, probably fine to read this book. If anyone out there watching has young children or anything that like to read comics or anything like that, and you kind of want to get them a Spider-Man book, I would maybe hold off on getting this one, just because they're going to read it and not necessarily understand what's going on, or because they're going to read it and sort of not understand the nuances, if that makes sense. What more can I say about this without spoiling it? I'm trying to wonder. So in this, Spider-Man is newly married to Mary Jane, and he's sort of dealing with his own morality. It's kind of like Terry Crews's character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, when he has his two daughters and so he doesn't want to go out into the field because he's kind of worried he'll get hurt and he won't see his daughters. Peter Parker's a bit like that, so he talks about being scared of dying in this, which was very interesting to see. It was kind of interesting to see Spider-Man as more of a character than this indestructible character, you know? It was quite cool to see that. There's a character in this called Vermin, who is a character I've never heard of before, who was created by Baron Zemo, probably most famously known for being in Captain America Civil War. And so, yeah, in one of the previous stories, Captain America and Spider-Man fought Vermin, and they had to both take him down together because that's the only way they could take him down. So in this, he's sort of a recurring character. So yeah, without spoiling it too much, I would, like I say, I'd highly recommend getting this book, and I think that's pretty much most of the stuff that I could kind of say about this without spoiling it. It deals in morality. You got the character Vermin, you have Craven. Yeah, I think I'll go into spoilers now. So if anyone hasn't read the book, I would really suggest not watching the rest of the video because I'm going to spoil it, and this book is one of the books that you need to kind of read without kind of having spoiled, if that makes sense. Right, so the big spoiler is, drum roll. So obviously this is the story about Spider-Man's death, and on the front cover of this book there's actually Spider-Man sort of climbing out of the grave. That kind of iconic scene, here lies Spider-Man slain by Craven the Hunter. So I would say that's probably one of the spoilers in this. Obviously, I think the big spoiler in this is that Craven eventually takes his own life by the end of the book, but having sort of bested Spider-Man, or at least he thinks he's bested Spider-Man. He's done everything he's set out to do in his life, and so he can finally sort of rest, if that makes sense. At least that's the way it makes sense to him. So, yeah, the story follows Craven the Hunter. You first introduced him. As I mentioned earlier, you get his inner monologue. He's sort of talking about who he is, all the things he's gone through, and then he's trying to hunt Spider-Man because that's the only kind of game he's not captured, if that makes sense. So then Spider-Man goes to sort of this funeral almost for the guy called Joe Face, I think he's called, who was like a 2-bit thug that used to give Spider-Man information. This leads to Spider-Man sort of questioning his own morality and thinking like, well, Joe Face has died, Uncle Ben's died. All the while you have Craven sort of getting ready to hunt Spider-Man. He's bathing in spiders, which is horrible. So one thing I really enjoyed throughout the 6 issues of this book was that you keep seeing brief glimpses into what's kind of going to happen. So all the way through this first issue, there's somebody digging a grave and you have no idea what's going on or why it keeps cutting to this guy digging a grave until you finish the issue and Spider-Man has been shot and you're like, he was digging Spider-Man's grave. The first issue ends with Spider-Man being buried, and then second issue starts with kind of introducing Vermin, who's a character, like I said, I've never heard of before, I've never read before, and so to kind of see this it's very interesting because I've not read it before or anything. So it was very cool for this like classic story that a lot of people talk about to kind of introduce a new character. So as I mentioned in the first issue, you have the cutbacks to the person digging the grave. In this you have the rat on top of the grave, kind of symbolising Spider-Man's defeat, but also you have the introduction of Vermin, the Rat Man. So so Craven is sort of now, having defeated Spider-Man, he's like, where do I go from this? What can I do? He kind of wants to be better than Spider-Man, so he starts wearing Spider-Man's outfit, the black classic sort of Spider-Man outfit. He starts going out, trying to ruin the name of Spider-Man almost. Mary Jane is getting worried about Peter Parker at the same time. She goes out trying to find him. Craven drops down in the Spider-Man outfit and actually rescues Mary Jane, but she can instantly see it's not Peter because it's way too violent, and also like I think in this he actually ends up killing someone, which Spider-Man would obviously never do. The next kind of couple issues sort of follow on from this. They sort of follow Craven taking up the Spider-Man mantle almost, while you've got Mary Jane sort of trying to solve what's happened to Peter. Craven's trying to ruin the name of Peter and Spider-Man. Vermin is just kind of doing his own thing, kind of doesn't really know what to do. Sort of one of the things Craven realises he can do to be better than Spider-Man is to go and defeat Vermin, because obviously Spider-Man had to have the help of Captain America to defeat Vermin, where Craven's like, if I can go and beat him on my own, then I am better than Spider-Man, I'm a better fighter than Spider-Man. So he does, he goes and defeats Vermin. So end of issue 3, he's walking out of the sewer carrying Vermin, and it says, the depth triumphant. So obviously now he is officially better than Spider-Man. But then, the last panel of issue 3, you have Spider-Man's hand reaching out of the ground, covered in spiders. It says Mary Jane. So I was reading this, I read this all in one sitting, and I was reading that, I got to the end of issue 3 and I was just kind of like, oh god, I need to read the rest of it now. Then issue 4, called Resurrection, sort of deals with everything Spider-Man was going through whilst he was buried, thought to be dead. He eventually breaks free from the grave and realises that he's been dead for 2 weeks. And so obviously he's annoyed. He goes home. She's obviously worried about him, and he's nowhere near as strong as he should be. And it was really sort of interesting. So I mentioned earlier about how Spider-Man deals with his own morality in this. When he breaks free from the grave and he's sort of injured and he's not strong enough to take on Craven, pretty much. I really enjoy when characters do that, if that makes sense, when films do that. So like, for example, Rocky, spoilers for Rocky, I guess. I didn't think I'd be spoiling Rocky in this, but yeah, spoilers for Rocky. So at the end of Rocky 1, he loses to Apollo Creed, then Rocky 2, he goes and fights Apollo Creed and wins. That's why that character grows, because he's defeated, and like, you always expect the character to win at the end of the story, but he's defeated, and so he's more of an underdog going into number 2. So like that, Spider-Man goes to fight Craven pretty much, and then you're led into part 5, which Craven's referencing his mum being insane a lot of the time. Spider-Man sees Vermin tied up, and he's like, oh, I've got to help him, and obviously Vermin's sort of traumatised from what Craven did to him, sort of thinking like, that's just Spider-Man, because it was just Craven wearing the Spider-Man suit, so it's Spider-Man that's done this to me. And he tries to fight Spider-Man. Spider-Man's nowhere near strong enough to fight him, and ends up pretty much losing to him and gets saved by Craven, who won't let Vermin kill Spider-Man, because obviously he's already sort of killed Spider-Man, if that makes sense. Like, he didn't actually kill him, but he defeated him and buried him for 2 weeks. Reading this, this was the last thing I expected to happen, was Craven to save Spider-Man and to let him go and sort of almost grow as a character, to say like, I'm never gonna hunt again. He's sort of like finally got honour in a way, in his own weird way. He says he now knows peace, calm, happiness, and ending, and obviously lifts up the rifle that he shot Spider-Man with and shoots himself, and then you have this sort of like haunting final panel of his family portrait with the blood dripping down, which was really a really sort of nice end to his character in a way. At least I thought so, because you kind of have this closure that he's, like I say, he's done everything he's wanted to do and he's gone out on his own terms almost. Going into the conclusion, you have Spider-Man facing off against Vermin in the sewers. And like I said, like, he originally only had the help of Captain America, and so we already know that he's lost once, and now he's not even at his strongest, so he's pretty much grantedly gonna lose, which was just like, you kind of worry so much for him, for Spider-Man. So he's got this worry that he's already going to lose because he's not strong enough, followed by the PTSD of being buried for 2 weeks. Like, he's crawling through these tight sewer tunnels, and it's just all the while flashing back to him being buried. It was so interesting to watch, and to look at this recurring PTSD that a superhero has. It's like with Iron Man, when he has the PTSD from being in the desert, being blown up. It's really interesting to see a character so vulnerable, and then all the while, just like in issue 1, you have flashbacks to the guy digging the grave. This time we know it's for Craven, and you have Craven's confession, which kind of clears the name of Spider-Man, clears everything that he's done, because he's sort of now sees Spider-Man as a worthy adversary rather than an enemy. One of the most interesting parts I thought of this was when Vermin and Spider-Man are fighting in the sewers. Vermin jumps on top of him, pushes him under the water, and Spider-Man just repeats, I'm not dead, and like his hands come up. So it's showing his PTSD, you can see how much this is affecting him. It's really sort of interesting. And so eventually Vermin gets above ground and almost gets hit by a van, but Spider-Man swoops in, saves him and drops him off at the police, and then goes off to finally go back home and be with his wife, because he's done everything he needs to do. Craven's defeated, Vermin's defeated, he can finally go home and rest, and the last thing he says is, I'm home. And then we end with Craven's funeral, the guys digging the grave. And just like Spider-Man's headstone, it says, Craven the Hunter, he died with honour. Which he did, because he kind of found that honour, and chose to die with honour. So this is a really interesting book. I really enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend it. I know I've just kind of sat and talked through the plot, but I really enjoyed it, and I'd really recommend it for a Spider-Man story. I mean, hopefully if anyone's watching this right now, you have read it, because I've just spoiled pretty much everything. Or if you're one of the people who doesn't care about spoilers, I hope you go and read it now. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. I can't remember it. I think I gave Gotham After Midnight a star rating, so I'd probably give this 5 stars out of 5. Please go check this out. Deals a lot with honour, PTSD, themes of vulnerability, morality, and for a comic, you kind of like, I know me personally, a couple of my friends don't read comics, so like I know they probably think that it's just like, oh, it's superheroes, it's kids stuff, it's like, a lot of comics aren't like that, and this really shows that, the stuff that's in this that's so good. I literally read this last night, and now I've talked about it for 20 minutes. I want to read it again after this. I might actually do that. I might read it after this. So I've just kind of sat here and shown my excitement and kind of gushed over this book for 20 minutes. So sorry about that, but I hope you enjoyed it for whatever reason. I hope you've read the book and enjoyed it as well. I think that's all from me for today. So thank you so much for watching, if anyone is still watching this. Thank you for getting to this point. Before we go, I just want to say, please like the video, subscribe if you're new, if this is your first time or you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and like. Ring the bell notification so you don't miss out on a video. I do upload fairly sporadically, so please, please ring that. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.